If you think about the entire wealth of human knowledge, public domain knowledge that as encapsulated on the net, suddenly we're taking all that information and enabling 6 or 7 companies to do what they want with it. Our entire 10,000 years of human history, human culture, human language now is under the power of 6 or 7 companies to manipulate. 90% of AI research really happens at 7 companies.
Today, I'm personally really excited with the lineup of speakers that we have, because the sessions are really at the cutting edge of what I described our intention to be, new thought, things that we are not normally thinking about, and it straddles that spectrum from cutting edge to creativity. So first up, we have a conversation about AI. And I'm not sure how many of you have actually used this tool, but 6 months ago, this burst upon our consciousness with ChatGPT. It has been in the news. And I just want to give you a couple of figures before I invite our speaker on stage to unravel this very complex phenomenon that's hit us. Goldman Sachs said that with the advent of this new model of generative AI, 300 million jobs would be displaced in the very next few years. On the flip side, World Economic Forum said 86% of jobs will have to reorient themselves to make space for this new phenomenon. PwC says very optimistically that in the next 7 years, this will release single-handedly $15 trillion worth of new wealth, which really is more than the combined GDP of China and India put together. So that gives you some sense of the kind of economic potential, disruptive as well as positive, of this power. But at the other end of it are a very, very wide phalanx of very anxious voices that are saying that we as human beings have created a power that is going to replace us, that will extinguish humanity, and the very creators of this phenomenon and this power are saying so themselves. I'm just going to quote one of them, which is Geoffrey Hinton. He's called the father of AI. He quit Google to be able to speak clearly and from his conscience. And he's just one of a phalanx of others, including Elon Musk, who says we are summoning the devil. But Geoffrey Hinton said he left Google so that he could publicly say that I am scared of what I have created, and we are very quickly going to be replaced by a digital intelligence that is smarter and more powerful than the biological intelligence that we represent. So how should we think about this force, and how does it play out in terms of human consciousness and economics and politics? To discuss all of that, I have a fantastic speaker. Karthik Kalyanramani is one of only 100 people in the world, artists, who were engaging with this from about almost 7 to 10 years ago, when it was very nascent, it was not on our radar, and he, K.K. Raghava, his brother, and a handful of others were looking at it, in fact, not just as a tool of efficiency and productivity, but a dialogue with human creativity. And now even they have been pioneers in that field. They too have been washed over by it, and everyone's trying to grapple with this phenomenon, but they've been thinking deeply about it for a long time. They have an artist collective called 64 by 1. He's an art curator amongst many other hats, which I'm not going to go into right now because he's here in that capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Karthik Kalyanramani. Thank you so much for coming here, Karthik.
Thank you for that welcome, Shoma.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there was a long list of people to thank, but that's how all of this comes together. Karthik, we met a couple of months ago in Delhi, actually, when this was even more nascent, and it's been galloping since then. So before we dive deeper, I actually want to ask the audience, how many of you have used any of the AI tools that is available in the market right now? Could you just raise your hand? ChatGPT? Okay. Any of the visual tools? Midjourney, DALL-E? Okay, that's just one or two. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate a little bit about what we're talking about so that you understand why this is such an important conversation. But before I do that, Karthik, why don't you share with the audience, why is this, I shared the economic figures, but tell us, what is it that AI is doing today, which it was not doing 10 years ago, which has made this the hottest debate across the world? Give us some jaw-drop figures.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's a bizarre situation that we're in. I don't think, one of the several hats I wear as well is I teach AI for business at a business school. And one of the most bizarre things from a point of view of business is you suddenly have this industry, let's say typified by Microsoft and OpenAI and so on, running around asking to be regulated. I don't remember any other industry that's done that. So, for example, Sam Altman, the director of OpenAI, has gone on an all-European tour asking European regulators to please regulate AI. They've all signatories in this joint letter that says AI is an existential threat to humanity, including Yoshua Bengio and Jeffrey Hinton, who Shoma mentioned. These are some of the originators of the movement. Same time, you have Brad Smith of Microsoft saying AI needs to be regulated. So we are at a strange moment when the very founders and the very machines behind this movement recognize that a much broader conversation like this one needs to happen. So I think it's a great moment to be having this conversation.
I'm going to give you a moment to collect your thoughts while I demonstrate this. You know, I was wanting you to share with the audience that what is it that they're called large language models. Some of you know, forgive me if I'm doing it like telling you about it, because some of you may not have engaged with it. But, you know, share with the audience, what is it that the large language models are doing, you know, how are they trained, etc., which makes it so unique. In the meantime, while Karthik is collecting his thoughts, I'm going to show you just how Midjourney works, you know, and we're going to come to the imminent danger of all of this in the here and now. So anybody, volunteer, you know, have you ever been able to think a thought and immediately see, without being an artist, see that image being created? Yes? Who said yes? Yes. Why? Like in your imagination, or like you've been able to conjure images before? Okay, so anybody, raise your hand. Give me an image you want to create. Anybody?
A description.
No one? Yeah, okay, tell me. An ideal world, okay. Now, that's a good way to enter. Is AI intelligent enough to create an ideal world? Let's see. Okay. Preksha, can you just put my screen on? Yeah, thank you. So this is how it works. All you have to say is /imagine. Oh, 1 minute. I hope the net is working. So we are at cutting edge thought, but the net may not be working. Okay. Preksha, can you help me? Let me see. Okay, it's come back. So this is how it works. All you have to do is write /imagine prompt, and I'm going to write an ideal world. Let's see, let's do it in black and white, because I don't think we should give color to an ideal world, it's dangerous. And 16K, now just watch this. So all it takes is 15 seconds for this to conjure an image. And you know, you've done something very innocuous, which is like an ideal world. Let's see what it throws up.
You can get a little bit more inventive. You can like, for example, ask for a Gothic pink chair, throne made out of razor blades, for instance. Yeah. You can get as inventive as you please.
People have been having fun doing kind of revenge portraits on all the tech bros that have created this, because they've asked for Elon Musk to be, you know, a portrait of Elon Musk as a rag picker. And, you know, so that's the kind of fun. Okay, here goes. Can you see this? This is the machine's idea of this looks like hot air balloons over Cappadocia, you know. But do you understand what I mean? It took it 10 seconds. And like I said, you know, you've asked for something very, very mild. But as we go on, we'll demonstrate some stuff. But that's what it took. It took 10 seconds for this machine to produce an ideal world in its mind. And there are others. But let's get to the conversation.
Yeah, no, to produce 4 different versions of an ideal world. I was working for the world's largest youth festival called Under 25, and as you can imagine, it was 1,000 speakers over 3 days. As you can imagine, the number of creatives they had to produce. It was all a cinch with AI, because it can produce it can produce an infinite ideas of what an ideal world can look like, not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. And it can do it all, like Shoma said, in 15 seconds.
So Karthik, like I was saying, help our audience understand, how was the machine able to do this? Whether in terms of text or image, how have they been trained? How have we created this power amongst us?
So the basic idea of how an AI, it's actually really simple. Think in terms of sort of a black box that learns the relationship with things you feed it and the things that you want out of it. Inputs and outputs. So let me make that more concrete for you. Suppose you wanted to create a self-driving car. What could some of the inputs be? It could be the video that's placed in front, all the images that it sees. It could be radar estimations of distances of other cars. It could be all the sensor information that it's getting. That's the input. What the machine has to do is convert that input into an output or an action. In that case, it would be how much I need to steer, how much I need to press the brake, and so on. And so what a self-driving car does is essentially it's just an AI algorithm that learns the mapping or the relationship between those inputs and those outputs. What these large language models do, they work on the basis of predicting text. So they've been trained on an enormous corpus of text from around the internet, and all they do is they learn given various text excerpts as input, they figure out what it is humans expect as output, and they generate it. That's essentially, to boil it down, what it does. There's a lot of bells and whistles.
Right. So, I mean, I'm a journalist, so I like to stun with numbers and figures, is that when ChatGPT was introduced to us, it had been trained on 10 billion parameters. Basically, they've been using the data across the internet to train the AI to reflect human thinking. And just in these last few, ChatGPT has been releasing new and new models, and it is now trained on 10 trillion parameters. So it's able to do everything that human beings do that much faster. Like Jeffrey Hinton said, that what it takes us, to learn, you can't transmit that, but the AI machines, 10,000 of them will instantly know something. They can obviously, think much faster. They can synthesize much faster. So there's all of that. So Karthik, now that we've kind of at least hinted at the sheer power of this, there's been a huge debate about how to control this. Who are the companies that are doing this? Should it be governments that control it? Should it be companies that control it? So, what is at the heart of this debate? Who really should control a power like this?
Yeah, no, you absolutely summarized it already, Shoma, in the sense that if you think about the entire wealth of human knowledge, public domain knowledge that as encapsulated on the net, suddenly we're taking all that information and enabling 6 or 7 companies to do what they want with it. Our entire 10,000 years of human history, human culture, human language now is under the power of 6 or 7 companies to manipulate. 90% of AI research really happens at 7 companies. Think about it a little bit. It's Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Baidu, and Tencent. How many countries is that? 2. US and China. So this creates geopolitical consequences as well, apart from the fact that these few companies have this enormous impact. We were joking the other day, Shoma, so someone asked Sam Altman, who's the director of OpenAI, which produced ChatGPT, whether India has a chance to catch up. And I think he said something like, no.
It's hopeless.
It's hopeless. Now, why is that? Do we lack the brains? No, we don't. Do we lack the money to set some stuff up? Not really, because let me give you an example. The top open source large language model right now was built by a small team in UAE. It's called Falcon. It's outcompeted the large language model produced by Meta called Llama. What is the issue? It's the issue is that these 7 companies control all the distribution channels. A Google or a Microsoft can push their product down to you and make you use it. Me as a researcher with 7 other people, maybe even if I got $200,000, I'm not going to be able to get my product out to you. I'll just get bought over by Google.
Right.
So.
But, I mean, apart from this, there's, Karthik said that very rarely is it that you have creators of a phenomenon saying, come regulate us, come control us, come stop us, But there was a letter signed by 27,000 AI experts that said, stop this phenomenon because it's too powerful. And, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, a lot of the others, Jeffrey Hinton, Yoshua Benigo, all these guys, they're saying that right away, we need something equivalent to the nuclear regulatory authority to control this power before it is put out in public domain. So using that as an entry, Karthik, I wanted you to share with the audience, why should they be interested in this,
Right.
What is the imminent, right now, here and now danger? How
Right.
can it be used and misused?
Right. So there are a couple of big ones already. One, of course, is surveillance. We might not be that worried about it here, rightfully or wrongfully, but certainly there are countries like China that have pioneered minute-to-minute surveillance of their citizens within certain provinces, which calculate like the amount of soap you use in a bathroom, whether you, how much time you take in a public toilet, and so on, to calculate your social credit score based on which you'll get certain benefits. Now, that sounds like a very, very dark thing. So surveillance is one. The other is the possibility of rogue actors taking on, like terrorists, that's what I mean by rogue actors, or even certain nations, taking on AI that's meant for one thing and misusing it for another. So AI made for chemical drug discovery can be used to create chemical weapons. AI used to study genetic sequences can create ethnically targeted bioweapons. So there's that danger. The third danger, of course, is we already alluded to it, the incredible inequality in who owns these algorithms, who's able to control them, who is able to effectively make use of them. I would say the fourth and the last, in terms of the immediate threats, not so much in terms of the other bigger threats that we've talked about a little bit, is really the usage in very, very dangerous ways. So Palantir, for example, one of the top defense companies in America, demonstrated that AI was able to come up with far more effective battle plans based on surveillance videos, and so on. So it's really these things that people are worrying about, and bias is a large one. So for example, one of the great French politicians, Cedric Villani, great mathematician, he calls it cyber colonialism. Why? If Shoma had typed in a princess, guess what you're going to get as an output? You're going to get a little blonde girl wearing a little pink tutu. So is it fair that we as Indians are training an entire generation as we get more and more reliant on AI on the imagination of the West? So our visual imagination is getting colonized. Right. So I think. So
I'd like to add something. I don't know how many of you follow Anand Mahindra, but he just tweeted like 15, 20 minutes before our session began, a picture of himself playing Holi that was conjured up by somebody and in a space that Anand Mahindra has never visited, So he joked and he said, okay, I hope everybody, creates images of me in my bucket list where I've never been so that at least virtually I can live out my experience. But he said, this is scary because it's indicative of what propaganda and false information and fake news can happen, So I would add that in the real here and now danger.
That's a big one. Now I need, Shoma, before to fake your voice, I needed probably around 6 months ago. I needed probably 11 hours of your recorded speech. Now I need 3 seconds.
Right. So we're going to run out of time, unfortunately, too quickly, Karthik. There's at the heart of the debate, like we said, one is who controls it. Is it governments? Is it companies? And then there are two other models, which is that people are saying, let's make it open source, put it out as a common good for everyone to use. Both are very difficult, has a lot of difficulties attached to it. Can you very quickly sum that up?
Yeah, the problem with the open source model is that you don't have control at all on who is going to use it and how they're going to use it. and that includes rogue actors, other governments, and so on. And the problem with a very highly secretive AI is all of this explosion in AI has been possible primarily because of the open source model. Because each little epsilon and delta improvement that has happened over the language models over the past 3 years have been completely unpredictable. There was one paper, for example, it's called Attention is All You Need, that really revolutionized the field. But no one really knew before that it was going to revolutionize the field because it was just a small tweak to an existing model. And if that existing model hadn't been open source, this tweak wouldn't have happened. So there's that real...
Right. So, this is just a little window into the power of AI, and, some of you have used it, some of you have not. But we're talking right now only about the real here and now, propaganda, fake news, political tool. Imagine during elections how this can be used to create deepfakes. Tamil Nadu's finance minister, Mr. P.T.R. Thiagarajan, said that maybe that tape that was used on him was fake, not fake. We don't know, but we're going to enter a post-truth world where nobody believes anything, because nothing you see will be believable by anyone. Is it the government doing it? Is it another player doing it? We're going to live more and more isolated worlds where there's no truth. So, like we said, we've entered a post-truth world. Yeah. And then comes the post-human world, Karthik, which is what you've been dealing with in your art. We've talked a little bit about the danger right now. What about the danger that people like Geoffrey Hinton and others are talking about, which is when AI will wipe out humanity?
Right. I mean, I have to play the devil's advocate here. I have to say that that does not seem that plausible immediately. However, there are a couple of plausible scenarios. One, for example, there's something called AutoGPT that was created which is GPT, which is ChatGPT, with a certain amount of autonomy. It was given higher level goals, and it demonstrated an ability to break those higher level goals down into lower level goals and then execute them itself. So do internet searches, etc. So one of the goals it was given was let's wipe out humanity. Clearly, it didn't prove very successful. We're here. But anyway, that jokes apart, I'll be. There are basically two things that people are worried about. One is the idea that somehow these machines can develop will and consciousness. That's very far off because basically we don't understand how will and consciousness work in humans. However, even without will and consciousness, there are big things that they're worried about. So for instance, if you had a machine that can form its own sub-goals, intermediate goals, towards fulfilling a larger goal, those intermediate goals need not be aligned with humanity's goals at all. So for example, if you gave an extremely powerful AI the task to do a very tough math problem, it could decide that the only way it's going to use that math problem is to use all the power in the world. Use the entire Earth as a supercomputer. Well, that's going to cause untold misery for humans, but it doesn't care because its intermediate goal is misaligned with humanity. And it does not need will or consciousness for this to happen. This is one thing that Geoffrey Hinton is worried about. The other thing is just the general issue of goal-oriented AI being scary, because once you give it a goal, you really don't know at what point that goal is going to conflict with human goals. So for example, you ask an AI to build its only goal in life. It derives pleasure from making paper clips. It starts out by using the scrap metal it finds to make paper clips. Then it decides, whoa, that table, that's made of metal. Let me make paper clips out of it. Then it starts stripping the electrical wiring in this room. Then it starts using every possible material it can to make paper clips. It's just making paper clips, but it's causing untold havoc. This is the issue of misaligned objectives. So if you have goal-oriented AI, which does not seem that far away, if it develops human-level competence, it will automatically develop superhuman competence. That's the thing that they're all really, really worried about.
Right. I just wanted to, bring up one more topic one more thought before we move on to our next session, which is that, again, we're quoting Geoffrey Hinton because he has that father of AI tag. Others, we could be quoting anybody else as well.
Grandfather of AI.
Grandfather of AI. Well, he was saying, just look at it this way, that when this power that we are talking about has already eaten off all the public information, all the data on the internet. I don't know if any of you read this, but they are already having a data crisis. there's an oil crisis in the AI industry, which is that the data has been used up. Now they want our emotional data. They want to know how we feel, not just not our decisions, but all the dilemmas before our decisions. Because they want the machines to begin to really replicate human thinking, And in that, he said, let's not wait for a time when the AI can actually be like the Terminator and come and kill us all. He was saying that it can be so manipulative because it has already read all the books by Goebbels and by Machiavelli and has seen human history played out. It already has that knowledge. And so it could actually manipulate you and me to do things which is its own objective.
This is not that far-fetched. I mean, already pretty dumb AI is already doing this on your social media. There was a report that a certain company, I don't want to name it right now because there are court cases against it, was using AI data for identifying vulnerable people, emotionally vulnerable people, people who are likely of committing suicide, and people who are depressed, and using their data, knowing that they act more impulsively than normal, using their data to sell them stuff. Now, we can wonder how ethical that is and how much worse things will be when the AI gets much better at reading emotional cues.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that generative AI in our public life is only 6 months old, so it's in its infancy. How it'll develop is something still waiting to... we've run out of time, but we spoke of all the dangers, and what makes it complex is that no one's going to put this genie back in the bottle because it can also help deliver health for all, education for all, distance learning, etc., medical discovery. So there are just a lot of arguments going on around this. So, since I've brought you here as the resident doomsayer.
No, I mean, I'm not. I've been, somehow that's how this conversation has evolved.
Yeah.
There are both sides.
Playing to my own temperament, let me be the doomsayer. I just said that these are the positive things that could come out of AI.
Yeah.
What's the danger even there, Karthik?
Oh, you really want me to be the doomsayer? I just want to add one more positive thing. I mean, it's really democratized creativity to an incredible degree. So, for example, I'll just one positive thing, Shoma. One of my friends is a 60-year-old offline gemologist. And he has developed, through 1 day of little bit of help, he's developed a complete online business where the SEO, search engine optimization, the website, the design, the database tracking, everything is done by AI. And it just required him to get familiar with 3 or 4 different apps. So that kind of ability to take control over your creativity and over your entrepreneurship is there. However, that said, what it also means is if you don't want your creativity to be poached by AI, tough luck. We are really not anywhere close to having the correct regulatory framework to even deal with a lot of these issues that we've talked about.
Right. I'll just end with saying that, he was saying positivity. Another friend of mine who has a Down syndrome child said that AI has been a boon, because suddenly a child that finds it hard to talk to other humans is being able to type stuff and feel himself completely comprehended, So there is all of that, and there's much, much more. I think we just touched upon the fact that this is now challenging our idea of what it means to be human. And part of your work, Karthik, was to say that we design algorithms, but they're redesigning us.
Absolutely.
And changing what it means to be human.
I think our tools
You believe we are already post-human.
Absolutely. Our tools make us. I mean, imagine if we hadn't invented the pen or writing, we wouldn't have higher mathematics. And higher mathematics has made all of this possible. So, I mean, our tools constantly change us, and AI is yet another one of those tools that is in the process of changing us, I believe.
Right. I'm going to stop there. I just want to leave one thought. Why would we think that this is a conversation that would interest a general audience at Ignition? Is that the thing that I've been thinking about is that, with social media, we've already got so polarized, and those algorithms were written when we were all sleeping and no one was looking. We have a mental health issue. We have children who are having identity crises, while it's also been democratic. So even when we talk about health and education, when we type something on Google, you at least get 10 articles to read from. It's already been curated for something you like. But now imagine that there is a phenomenon which when you want to type and get some knowledge, there's another machine designed by some algorithms, the 7 companies in Silicon Valley, that will synthesize information and serve you a pill of information designed by others. That is an insane amount of power in anybody's hands. And do we want our governments to have it? Do we want our governments designing our minds? Do we want companies designing our minds? At the very least, I hope this is the igniting of a conversation that we feel very involved in before it overtakes us.
I'd just like to leave you with one thought. I'm sure there are a lot of business people among you. If you feel motivated to it, I would beg you or request you to go home and see how AI can already replace the job that you do. Some of it cannot, but you'll be shocked at how much it can. That's the last thought.
I told you he was the resident doomsayer. Thank you very, very much, Karthik.